whatever is borrowed is used wisely in investment projects that support the manufacturing sector. And high public debt coupled with inflation can lead to decrease debt servicing costs and crowding out of private investment. As one of the earliest the value presenters noted, this one agrees with his findings that inflation is a necessary evil, that it can be used to control the real effects of the debt. To that end, the study draws the following conclusions. That one, inflation moderates the effect of fiscal policy on manufacturing sector growth. And two, inflation was found to weaken the positive impact of government spending on manufacturing sector growth, underscoring the need for balanced fiscal policy. And another finding was that efficient management of government revenue is crucial, but the direct impact on manufacturing growth is complex and context dependent. As I've said before, if revenue is not well managed, then the positive impact on manufacturing sector would be an illusion. And then inflation was found to worsen the negative effects of high public debt on manufacturing sector growth, pointing out to the importance of debt management. From that, the following recommendations were suggested. One on balanced fiscal policies. The standard recommends that policymakers should balance government expenditure to stimulate growth while maintaining physical sustainability, especially during inflationary periods. On efficient revenue management, strategies to manage government revenue should minimize the negative impacts on manufacturing sector, in that policymakers should focus on effective allocation and avoid the excessive taxation during inflation. Targeted investment, that is what I mean. And then on debt, the standard recommends that investment financed by public debt should enhance manufacturing sector growth. That is, money borrowed should go to the investments that have a positive impact on the manufacturing sector. And the excessive debt accumulation should be avoided to maintain fiscal stability and encourage private investments. And thank you for your audience.
Thank you, Alex, for that wonderful presentation. We have taken extra 4 minutes. So, next presenter, we can be ready for Joram Kiari Njuguna. Before Joram Kiari Njuguna, let us all clap for Alex again. Members, that's wonderful. Is our Joram. Joram will be presenting the relationship between cultural values and the effective transition of Youth Enterprise Development Fund in Isiolo County, Kenya. Create this presentation ready. I think after Joram we will have a Q&A session a little bit so that we can usher in to new team. There is Dr. Nyamu and his colleague. There's another session after this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Joram Kiari Njuguna. We co-authored the paper with Professor Gilbert Mugambi Mireti. So the relationship between cultural values and effective utilization of Youth Enterprise Development Fund in Isiolo County, Kenya. I will not go through the whole of that. The motivation, what motivated me to do this study. You see, we have very many youths we are complaining of unemployment. At the same time, we have a government that is telling us it is funding the Youth Enterprise Development Fund so much. When you go to the Youth Enterprise Development Fund offices, they will tell you they have significant number of youths who have benefited from this fund. Therefore, our expectation is that these youths should be significantly empowered. However, look at the Gen Z protest, what happened. It shows that surely there is something wrong. This Youth Enterprise Development Fund may not be effectively used, maybe due to a factor that I thought which could be cultural value. It could be affecting it. That's why I did this study. So I wanted to see, is there a relationship between cultural values and how these youths utilize their funds? And the agricultural values that I looked at, which I operationally defined, not the ones that you know. One is sense of belonging. The other one is production and consumption. And the other one is, let me rush to them so that you can see what I'm talking about. It's a bit slow, eh? I think it is an afternoon, yeah? See, you undo for me. This one, oh, it's okay, it's okay. I was there. So, these are the cultural values I looked at. A sense of belonging, gender roles, production and consumption. Look at gender roles as a cultural value. For instance, girls are banned from entrepreneurship. Men sometimes are not allowed to be shopkeepers. They are told you should be doing manual jobs. Then production and consumption, you see, when you are economically well up, when you are funded with this money, you are told now, instead of helping yourself, first of all educate your siblings. Then a sense of belonging, that you cannot run a business before your elder brother or sister. You feel you do not belong to that society. So, those are some of the things that I looked at. And going back to the abstract, you'll bear with me. I think I did some animations. So you'll bear with me. This is what we call technology. Yeah? You just enjoy the movements for the time being. It's not my fault. So, I used two research designs, correlational research design and descriptive research designs. I used two tools, questionnaires and interviews. Then I analyzed my data both qualitatively and quantitatively. Qualitatively, I did thematic analysis. Quantitatively, I did it descriptively and using inferential statistics. So descriptively, you know, mean, mode, median, standard deviation. Inferential, I used linear regression. So let me now move straight to don't worry. You know, when you present after getting your PhD, you do not worry so much. When I was doing my PhD, that's when I was worrying. So now I'm very relaxed. Nobody will deny me. I'm not defending anyway. So these are the tests that I did. Test of normality, multicollinearity test, and homogeneity test. Test of normality, you see, just to see whether the data is normally distributed. Multicollinearity test, is there any relationship between independent and the independent variables? Homogeneity tests, are the variables equal among each other? That is, there were no outliers. Those are the three tests, very important. Very important in linear regression. I'm so good, but don't worry. We are learning. So, we go to those ones we covered. Results. Look at those results. R. I think the other presenters talked of R. My R was 0.145. Very important in regression. My R square, when it is 0.145, it just shows that there is what we call simple correlation between cultural value and utilization, because those are two variables. Simple correlation is done for two variables. My R square was 0.021. You just convert that one into percentage. It will tell you when you convert 0.021 into percentage, it will be 2.1%. So it shows that 2.1% of that variable utilization is the one that is affected by cultural values. So the other remaining percent, 97.9, is affected by other variables. So that was hypothesis testing. Then we go to, no, is it animation or sabotage? You see, this thing, you bear with me, kindly. You know, in politics they say political sabotage. So that is now cultural values regression coefficients. So these coefficients will help us come up with what we call the regression formula, linear regression formula. So the explanation is very simple. Look at that. From that table, the sig or p-value, mine was 0.005, which is less than 0.05. The t-value was 2.829 from that table. I know I might be talking Greek to some people, but anyway, I have to do this. It is greater than 2. So as a result, I rejected my null hypothesis. You know, my null hypothesis was there is no statistically significant relationship between cultural values and effective utilization of youth enterprise development fund. But when you do the analysis, when you get these values now, what you do, if P is less than 0.05 and T is greater than 2, you reject it. So when you reject, you end up with what we call alternative hypothesis, which says that there is now a statistically significant relationship between cultural values and effective utilization. I know it is in the afternoon. Everybody is bored. In fact, I was also bored there when I was sitting there. So from now, these values, you can get what we call now this formula. It is my simple linear regression formula, which is utilization. The simple one is y is equal to a plus bx. So from that, you can easily tell that there is that relationship between cultural values, meaning that they affect how the youth use that fund. Those are the theories that I used, and in conclusion, I concluded that there is a statistically significant relationship between cultural values and effective utilization of this fund. So my recommendation was that there should be enhanced collaborative efforts by governments and PBOs. PBOs are nowadays the NGOs. They should be there to eliminate retrogressive cultural practices, because indeed, as per my study, they affect how the youths are utilizing their funds. If we eradicate them, then that fund will be properly used, and we will not be having the cries that we are having now, that there are no jobs for the youth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. John Njuguna. Members, that's the end of our presentations for our session. Maybe we can have like 2 questions to the presenters, and maybe if there is a burning question on the presentation that was made earlier. So kindly, the floor is open. Quietness means there is no question. Maybe I can ask a question to Alex. Let me open the floor. I think all of us know about the Finance Bill 2024, which has a lot of drama. Yesterday or the other day, it was reinstated again. How does the 2024 Finance Bill in Kenya impact the relationship between the fiscal policy, inflation, and the growth of the manufacturing sector, particularly in terms of competitiveness and the input cost? If you can navigate on that. Maybe to John, of course, from the topic of that area of youth enterprise fund, we have several. Every regime is like coming with their own. We have the ASRO fund. Is it part of those funds? It is how do cultural values influence the effectiveness utilization of the ASRO fund among Kenyan youth enterprises, and what strategies can be implemented to align these values with the goals of the fund to enhance entrepreneurial success? I think with those questions we can stay up with the floor. Maybe you can answer the mic. Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to show how the Finance Bill 2024 enhances the competitiveness of the Kenyan goods, especially the manufactured goods. To start with, the Finance Bill 2024 is still not active. Just the other week, the courts lifted the 2023-2024 Finance Bill. That is what we are currently operating with. But I had the privilege of going through the Finance Bill 2024, which was rejected. And one of the very reasons that the bill of the government raised an issue with was the publications. I mean, the bill was not, the information about the bill was not shared to people. One of the beauty about the Finance Bill 2024 is that it is sought to provide solutions, especially to the competitiveness of Kenyan goods. I'll give about 2 examples to answer your question. There was a levy introduced on eco-levy on manufactured goods. The Kenyan manufactured goods were exempted from that eco-levy. So the effect of that one is that it will make Kenyan goods attractive to the foreign market, because they will be producing goods at a lower cost. And then they have also That is one, on tax incentives. And the other one is they have also provided tariffs so as to ensure the Kenyan goods are competitive in region and international markets. They have also the Finance Bill 2024 as the special economic zones, which seeks to aggregate productive areas into zones so that we have economies of scale. And then the last one that I want to use to answer you is the provision of incentives. Like for example, I know in the pharmaceutical industry in Kenya, they are given incentives. Like, and I think a tax holiday of about, I'm not very certain, but it's something like 7 years tax holiday. So by that one, I think the Finance Bill 2024 meant good for the manufacturing sector. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The first question was on Hustler Fund. Is it part of Youth Enterprise Development Fund? No. But you see, Hustler Fund is more objective. It is for everybody, not for the youth, not for the, it's not specific for a certain sector, a certain group, age group. But youth enterprise is for the youth, and the constitution defines who are youths in Kenya. Anybody below the age of 35. I think from 18 to 35, that's the youth. Read the constitution. Now, how do cultural values influence the youth fund? That question is a very good question, because our latest reports, I think it was last week, they were saying, looking at the data of the people who have benefited from the Hustler Fund, men are more than women. And the data also showed that men are the greatest defaulters than women. So I'm just trying to say, due to the patriarchal nature of our society, men are benefiting more from some of these funds. So that means that that patriarchal nature is a cultural value. So it is affecting how the Hustler Fund is being distributed. The last question was, how can that be dealt with? In fact, it has been dealt with through laws. And I think there is a pending bill. They want to amend the affirmative action such that those who are disadvantaged will be the ones who are benefiting equal to those who are not disadvantaged. So it is being dealt with, laws are being passed, and finally, maybe outside the questions, it is important you note that I think there is a pending bill in Parliament. They wanted to have one umbrella body that was during Uhuru's regime. They wanted all the funds to be under one body. So that thing brought some issues, and I hope maybe in future they'll go towards that direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other question before we close? So that you can close the session. One from Anita, then for Dr. Nyan, start from there. We finish with Anita.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question to Daktari. Daktari, I think I was not able to really grasp very clearly the studies, the relationship or the effect of what? Cultural, effective utilization, youth enterprise fund. Now, my question is, why youth enterprise fund and is affected, could be affected by the cultural value, and there are also other funds. A good example is Women Enterprise Fund. Could the effect be generic to both and any other fund from the government? Second question is, that one again, the effects, could it be or could they be affecting other funding models in the private sector? Because actually we could be having private sector, especially CBOs, NGOs, that are also funding the same maybe groups, either youth or maybe such settings. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. I have two questions. Okay, the first one is not really a question, but for the first presenter, that is Alex Boogie, we say that an abstract is a synopsis of the research. So as per the study findings, we have seen that the study therefore stresses the importance of balanced fiscal policies that stimulate the growth while ensuring sustainability. So I would advise maybe you could highlight two or three or a number of the balanced fiscal policies that may be have affected the growth of the manufacturing sector during the time of your study. Then you say that the study examines the relationship. The study examines the relationship. Can you examine the relationship? You can determine the relationship. So you check on that. Then to Dr. Joram, there's a table that you displayed showing displaying the findings of the R squared and adjusted R. When you are maybe explaining how fit the model is, you say that you considered the R. So I am just, my question is this: what is the justification that you gave when you are considering R to measure or to determine how your model is fit? Because you had R squared and adjusted R. Why did you use R and not R squared and not the adjusted R?
I think be brief as much as possible.
Thank you very much. The first question from Daktari: why could my findings be generalized to other funds? In my assumptions, if you look at my thesis, you Google, it is online, my thesis. In the assumptions I'm saying, the findings can be generalized. Borrows from public. We are calling it PPPs. Borrows from public. We are calling it PPPs nowadays. Remember, they are done PPP. So the same way it is affecting other government funds, it can do to even private. That's why it is very important, and it can be generalized. My question, my answer to the other question from Madam, you are saying why did I use? In fact, I used R and R squared. Those are the two important things in linear regression. You see in that table, it is like a buffet. You see, when you are served there, you cannot go eating what you do not want. So that table gives you figures that are not relevant in this study. When you are analyzing, they will come out. But you only use that which is relevant for linear regression. R and R squared, R will show whether there is simple correlation. R squared will show how the percentage in which it will go. So adjacent R, in this case, it's a buffet. You left chapatis there. So adjacent R is a chapati not to be eaten now. Thank you very much.
Okay. I think for interest of time, you guys can have more interaction outside the platform. So we can now switch to the next team. Members, can you clap for us? Thank you so much. Now we welcome the next on stage. That is the honored by Dr. Nyamu and your colleague.
Thank you. So chairs are sitting here. Now we are having the very first presenter. The very first presenter should be Nathan Gitonga. Nathan Gitonga. Oh, Nathan Gitonga. Nathan Gitonga is presenting on the role of currency fluctuations in shaping Kenya's export performance. No. The role and impact of community-based organizations in tapping marine resources, a pathway to sustainable economic growth in Kenya. So, do you have another mic? So, Nathan, kindly take the floor. You've got 15 minutes, and I'll be very strict on time. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Nathan, as you've heard. Before I begin, let me say that I'm privileged to be presenting here. I made it a personal agenda to present in this university. I am from here, but of course, as you can see there, I'm a lecturer at the University of Eastern Africa, Baraton, that is in Nandi County. So I want to drive the whole way to reach here. The reason is I'm from here, okay? In this place to say I'm from River Nandongo means I'm just from here. I'm from Kondi. When I was in a small boy, I used to pass this route, going to Watonga to sell goats. I didn't know it would become a university. It's such a happy moment that we have a university, and I'm so proud of this. It's my home, and I'm proud of this university. So today I'll be presenting on the role and impact of community-based organizations in tapping marine resources, a pathway to sustainable economic growth in Kenya. I was very happy with the presenter was here, Dr. John, such an interesting presenter. But one thing which he said is what inspired him to do the paper. So what inspired me to do the paper is I have spent some few years in Mombasa. Actually, I live in Mombasa, but I've worked there. I've worked in Watamu, Kilifi. So when I was there, I saw the role the CBOs play in developing themselves and helping to maintain the marine life there. And so that's why I decided one day I'll do a research on that area. And so my paper, or my presentation, okay, this is a paper of course, so it touches on the blue economy, which is something which is really becoming something these days. We even have a ministry which deals with blue economy for sustainable development. And in Kenya, we have 536 kilometers of coastline, which is not small. Many countries can't afford, don't have the privilege to have such an area. And also we have what we call the exclusive economic zone of 200,000 square kilometers, a huge area. So this is an area where we have the exclusive right to use for our economic activities on the marine side. And the government is now committing to enhancing this blue economy. That's the outline of my paper there. Let's get to understand a little bit what is blue economy and the CBOs. We all know the CBOs stand for the community-based organizations. We even have them in Tharaka where we are, but these particular ones are the ones which are at the coast. And the components of blue economy, that's a schematic showing what blue economy really touches on. We have fisheries and aquaculture. We have the marine transport and ports, coastal tourism, offshore energy, marine biotechnology, and then down there you can see all that will have what we call marine conservation and biodiversity, and that will bring sustainable economic growth. This is what should be the model. And then for the CBOs there, we can see these are grassroots organizations which are addressing the local issues, and they are important in this, in that they are engaged in what we call stewardship, taking care of our marine resources. The CBOs like natural resource management and relevance. We see that the CBOs, this is a model that we can see there. Community participation, so they participate fully in preservation of this life, then sustainable management, economic benefit, the feedback loop to community participation. This is actually a diagram which I could have showed. Then we have the relevance in the Vision 2030. This is part of the Vision 2030. As you can see, in what we call the SDG 14, for example, that is the Sustainable Development Goal number 14 in the Vision 2030, it is very well stipulated. That's a table that shows that the targets for what we call in SDG 14 is number 1, to reduce marine pollution, and the CBOs have been engaged in pollution control efforts. Other things, what they do is that they protect marine ecosystem, regulate harvesting and overfishing, and conserve coastal areas. Okay. Then there I have the SDGs, that is the SDG targets and problem statements for the paper. The problem statement is overfishing. But these are the problematic areas which I wanted to explore further: the marine pollution and the climate change. When you look there, is a very alarming table there. This is a research which has been done by the UN and, of course, with collaboration with the Kenyan government. They have found how the coral reef cover has been reduced in the last 2 decades. Just in the last 20 years, you can see in 2000, we had 90% coral reef cover at the coast, our shoreline. But by 2020, we have only 30%. This is an alarming statistic which should get us now thinking, how can we all get involved in this conservation? And then, so there's a need for community-led strategies which will involve limitation of top-down approaches, so that we can have what is bottom-up approach. Then we have the limited enforcement capacity and lack of local engagement. The benefits of community-based management, one of them is that you can utilize the local knowledge. These people know better. Like I said, I've been there, especially there's a place called Watano, where I found that the communities really do a lot of work without much. They have these CBOs where, like there's a place where we call it Prawns Lake in Watano. Prawns Lake, they've created a very nice environment and some eating place, a place where you can go and sit. But the money which comes from there, they know how to divide it. They don't need government to come and do so much, but they organize themselves, and then they have rules. You cannot throw garbage in that area. It's a creek. It's not even in the shore. It's just a creek on the creek, and they do a very good job there. So these are some of the areas which I was looking, some of the CBOs which I took for the case for this study. We have the Kuruwitu Conservation and Welfare Association. It's based in Kilifi County. We have the Wasini P. This is actually the first, Kenya's first to establish what you call the LMMAs, or the local marine management area. The first one in Kenya. Then we have the Wasini Women's Group, the involved in mangrove reforestation and ecotourism, and Kibuyuni Sea Turtle Conservation in Lamu County. My research objective was to analyze the role and impact of CBOs in sustainable marine resource management, which was the primary objective, and other specific objectives were to assess the role of CBOs and the others that you can see there. The research questions and the ethical framework, some of the questions are these: what are the challenges and opportunities for CBOs and the roles that they play? Theory, the main theory which I used for, it was anchored on the theory of sustainable development, or the sustainable development theory, which says that we need to take care of Mother Earth. And then that's the theoretical framework right there. We have the community-based natural resource management, and then the role of the CBOs in marine development and management. For the literature review, I did the separation of the case studies, which are global case studies, and then the regional case studies. In the global, I looked at the Philippines, where we have the Apple Island Marine Reserve, and they have done quite a good job, these people there, to increase the biomass, the fish biomass and biodiversity. Then there's also in Indonesia. Regionally in Africa, I looked at Volundrake LMMA, which is the local marine management area, but in Madagascar. And then, of course, I also did some studies in Namibia, where they have the CB, the community-based natural resource management program, just like the ones which we are establishing in Kenya right now. In Kenya, we do have some existing literature, which I did. Again, it's the role of research in CBOs in Kenya. There's enough literature, not so much, and because of that, there was a place where I identified the research gap. I saw there's a big need for comprehensive impact analysis. We actually don't have longitudinal studies in Kenya so far, and we don't have many scholars who have gone to do studies in that. Most of the studies that we have are only done by the international organizations, but we don't have Kenyan scholars or universities or local, organizations that have done research in these areas. There's also lack of comparative studies and exploration of alignment with blue economy. For my methodology, I used the qualitative approach because I was using secondary data, and then for analysis, I used thematic analysis and content analysis. So for thematic, I took a lot of literature, then looked at the themes which I was looking for, and then I went on to code and then get frequency analysis, and then I was able to interpret the data. The findings, these ones that are there. We have conservation efforts, quite good findings which you find what they're doing there, and advocacy and sustainable practices. And on economic practice activities, we see that there's a lot of value addition in marine product, which could not be there if these CBOs were not involved. The case studies which I did was the one I sent this Community Conservation Welfare Association and the Wasini Women Group, which involved the community that have established a 30-acre, which is called a no-take zone. There you cannot cut the mangroves, you cannot even take anything from that area. So even the fish are not allowed to fish along that area. And then the Wasini, they are also involved in the preservation of mangrove, which is a very important tree in the coast. That's another study which I did. And you can see some of the impact there. Community has been able to establish permanent jobs, 25 of them, which involves tour guides and boat operators. Wasini Boardwalk, they have 15, and Kibuyuni Seaweed Farming, they have 40 jobs from their seaweed farm. Now, the impact overall is poverty reduction, And they saw, when it comes to the link of blue economic goals, we see there's a great support of sustainable resources and use and economic growth. And then it also promotes social inclusion and equitable benefits. Challenges which I found was, we can guess, financial constraints. Most of these CBOs, they are struggling to get funding. And of course, there's policy gap, where you see some of them operating without policies, or they are not aware of the policies which can govern such a CBO there. And then, of course, we have environmental threats, where there's a lot of overfishing, and then the impact on climate change. But we do have opportunities which I found. We have opportunity to have proper policies. Then capacity building, this I found to be very, very vital, because we have willing people but lack of capacity building. There's no training. Government has not done enough to tell them on ways. This is a very scientific area, and so there is a need for that. Then strategic partnership is needed, and of course we need to establish sustainable funding mechanism. I think I'll leave that because of time. Okay, like I said, we need now to involve, why this study was important, because it's create an avenue for policymakers to do something. And then on the future research, for the young researchers who would like to really go into this area, what I said is that we need a longitudinal impact studies, which I found it lacking. It was very hard to find. You see, this one we need at least 50 years of work. And of course, this will need systematic funding and systematic researchers to come in line. So we don't have that kind of study. Then we can do more on comparative analysis. There is no study which is comparing what is these people, maybe in Kilifi they're doing, the Lamu people, the Mombasa people, there's no that comparative study. Then, of course, the climate change adoption is not there. And then gender dynamics. I wish I had time to talk about gender dynamics here, but Dr. Jordan talked about gender. It's always the same thing where you see in the course it's very prevalent, where they say men cannot do this, women cannot do this. And so even when there's an opportunity, because of our gender beliefs, then we are not able to capture that. Okay? And that's my conclusion. To be able to fill these gaps, and to look at the roles the CBOs play. Okay? So some of the references, these were the major references which I used. As you can see, we have very little from Kenya. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Daktari. Can you give him a big up? Thank you, Daktari, for that good presentation. You are really kept time. Now, you share your questions. Again, we shall have a session of questions as we finish. Now, the next one is all right. Now, being informed that the other presenter is not allowed for this session, so before I exit the stage, let us have questions to Dr. Ali, and I'll start with my own one question, and then I open the floor for others. Dr. Ali, I happened one time to go to a place called Shimoni. I think I handled what is called the Dow ride, all the way to we almost got to Pemba Islands. And there's a place inside the ocean, that an island whereby we hand lunch, fish, and there was mangrove. There's mangrove trees, the whole of it. I saw a place, I didn't know whether those people could be having maybe such a project or not, but we had very good meal of fish. Now, what I wanted to ask is this. We've got other water masses in Kenya, e.g. Lake Victoria, Lake Turkana, Lake Naivasha, and the rest. Could your study be having similar, or could they be having similar challenges that actually can lead to maybe trying to discover the same opportunities in such areas. Can your standard be used as maybe a point of reference, and can other people living in such areas along water masses like Lake Victoria, Lake Naivasha and the rest borrow a leaf from your study? Maybe they could be having generic challenges or generic problems. Good. Now, please, a question for Dr. Ali? You have? Yes. Any other question? Or we take that one?
Dr. thank you very much for looking at community-based organizations as a pillar in our society in terms of understanding what the resources around them. Now, there is a time Kenya operated a program called the Economic Stimulus Program, where one of the components was looking into the fish ponds, especially in that coastal area. Now, my question is, did you explore the possibility of checking on the legislation around the blue economy, even in the relationship that they have in food security issues in this country?
Thank you for that question. Any other question? Thank you. So Dr. Ali, if you those two questions, and then we close. Asante.
Okay, thank you so much for the questions. The first one was if this study could be used as a point of reference, and you have actually talked about Shimoni. It was there, but because of time I passed it. Shimoni, it's part of the case study which I did, and yeah, this study also touches not just the cost, though much of it was at the cost, because unfortunately, like I said, we don't have so many studies which have been done. So one thing which I know is that yes, we can use it as a point of reference, but I have also learned something. In my final submission, I will not try to find a case study in these water bodies. I think it will enrich in my paper, and thank you for that. I don't know your name. Abraham. I've seen him many times. Yeah. Now I remember him. Mr. Marota, you have talked about legislation and policy on. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is something which the Kenyan government is right now doing. Again, it's in my final paper, it is already there included. Food security, as mentioned about food security, it's actually one of the pillars. It's just that because I could not talk about that, but we have, the government is now into legislation to ensure that blue economy is used as one of the pillars in ensuring food security. Okay, so I think, yeah, we are going towards the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, at this juncture, I want to exit the stage. I think I took the shortest time, and I want to usher in my brother, Dr. Kwenga, and Dr. Harriet. They are going to take the other session. Dr. Kwenga, kindly come and take the stage. Let us applaud him as he comes. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for that. Good afternoon, members. Mungu salama. So we will now move to the next part, which is enhancing computing technologies for socio-economic transformation. I am Kwenga. We will start with the first presenter. But unfortunately, we are switching. The first presenter is not able to present today, so we shall move to James. So James will start our presentations, then after that we shall follow the remaining order. Thank you so much.
And please try to keep time, 10 minutes presentation. Then members, you can just note down your questions. After the presentations, you will have a session for the questions. Thank you.
Good evening. So my research was focusing on the security issues in implantable medical devices. These are the medical devices that are deployed in situ, that is within the body. So this research has been coordinated by Dr. Nato and Dr. David Modi from the Chuka University. Now, healthcare has extensively implemented a number of Internet of Things devices to improve healthcare service provision. Now, these devices include a number of them, like the insulin pumps. We have the connecting pacemakers. They have been able to provide remote managed care, which has enhanced now service optimization, ensuring the timely response to patient needs, and also improved efficiency. And when we talk of efficiency, we are talking about the time taken to respond to critical issues raised by the patient. Yes, so these devices, there are also some wearable devices. There are some wearable devices like the smartwatches that track the health and wellness trackers. They have also been deployed to enable now patients with dementia. So for example, patients with dementia often lose location. They have been used to now enable them to be located by their family and loved ones for appropriate drug response and also monitoring patients. Now, there are some security challenges linked to these devices, and these security challenges occur because the minimalistic design approach adopted by the implantable medical devices or IoT devices in general. And these design limitations are intended to improve deployment in extreme conditions where deploying conventional computing systems would be infeasible. But now there are limitations on the processing capabilities in these devices. There are also storage limitations because they have limited memory. And then these limitations now, they have proved a detractor to security implementation because conventional security solutions require robust resources to enable effective deployment. Now, these devices are novel in their nature, so they are adopting an heterogeneous communication environment whereby organizations create controllers. These controllers are intended now to deploy the individual devices. Now, this results to an heterogeneous communication environment that affects end-to-end data delivery. So these devices are now exposed to security attacks that would be infeasible in the traditional environment, and deploying traditional security solutions is not advisable in such environments. Some of the attacks that they experience are denial of service attacks. These are service attacks that compromise accessibility of the devices. For example, they exhaust resources. For example, they can exhaust the batteries. One case was identified in 2010 where some IMDs were identified that they are prone to these attacks. And for example, if you exhaust the insulin pump battery of the insulin pump, that means that when the drug is supposed to be injected, it will not be injected. If you exhaust the battery for the pacemaker, that means when the device is supposed to recover the heart rhythm, that device will not function as expected. There are also some integrity attacks. These attacks compromise their communication among these devices. So they compromise the interface, the middle interface between the device and the controllers, or the controller and the existing corporate network. So these, the integrity attacks, the messaging feature for the devices. So there was one that was identified with the Symbic infusion pump. So this control was compromised, affecting disposing not only the business to litigation, but also disposing not only the business to litigation, but also to the patient, for litigation from the patient. Now, so there are some security implications for these attacks. There are some security implications. The attackers now, they compromise either DOS, denial of service, integrity, and privacy.
So there is need for a comprehensive security solution because now of the minimalistic design approach adopted by these devices and infeasibility of the existing security solution. So there are some hybrid security solutions that have been proposed. For example, use authentication and authorization. This has been able to identify, map, and monitor the devices. Data encryption to ensure end-to-end delivery. There is also device monitoring and also backup services in the cloud. Now, these solutions, they focus on data access and resource management, so they enhance resilience and responsiveness. While they focus on those features, they do not adequately address the need for identification of the threats. We have also cloud security solutions. So edge and cloud computing approaches have been proposed as backup solutions to ensure that data is protected on offset. We have secure communication protocols like constrained application protocol, message queue telemetry transport. This is for sending messages between the controller and the device. Extensible markup messaging and presence protocol. This is for assessing the device, managing the device. So these protocols ensure a relatively secure environment for communication. Now, while these approaches are effective in mitigating, in preventing occurrence of the attacks, they do not address the responsiveness act. Because security means to ensure resilience and responsiveness. There are incidences whereby attacks may occur even if we implement elaborate security solutions because an ideal security solution does not exist. So we need approaches that identify the threat while it is progress, control the threat, and safeguard the patient from adverse effects of the attack. So for example, encryption is if hackers can access the keys, as we have seen from other presenters, it becomes a challenge to contain that attack. So it disrupts performance, as we have seen in synthetic environment, breaches confidentiality, and also affects lawsuits. Now, there are some machine learning approaches that have been proposed to address zero-day threats. For example, a random forest model was identified with an accuracy of 93.75 in a previous research, and also gradient boosting achieved 94.26% accuracy. Now, other models like nuclear perceptron had an accuracy of 92.55. So these approaches have been identified to have reasonable security approaches, also in autoencoders demonstrating substantial performance, long short-term memory, and provided a 95% accuracy, as in a research conducted by Roy and Cheng in 2018. Convolutional neural networks achieved a 90.91%. Now, these accuracy scores are very limited, and these standards are general in nature, so we need them to have studies that are specific to health care, and in particular implantable medical devices or Internet of Things devices implemented within the healthcare environment. So one of the challenges we identified in the previous standards is overfitting issues. So long short-term memory and autoencoders have overfitting issues that they are unable to predict on a very data set. We have delayed incident response because of now the time taken for the cybersecurity team to respond to this incident. And then these standards use CAP99, K99 datasets, which are general in nature and they are not specific to healthcare environment. So accuracy is often also an issue with these models because we have not achieved 99% accuracy. Therefore, we need an hybrid security solution. So such a solution combines features from multiple models or algorithms, drawing strengths from those models and addressing limitations in the individual models. That way we are able to integrate different features and ensure optimal security within the IoT environment. So what are the benefits of such approaches? We have enhanced the accuracy and flexibility and adaptability of the detection. So there is need for us to adopt implantable medical devices and healthcare IoT devices because of their benefits. However, there are security limitations linked with these devices, some of them being denial of service, integrity, and privacy attacks. Whilst conventional security approaches have been deployed, they have their limitations. Therefore, there is need for an hybrid security solutions that intend to address these limitations and ensure optimal security nature for the IoT ecosystem. Therefore, we are undertaking a comprehensive research that will ensure safer and reliable medical IoT ecosystems to ensure patient trust and improve quality of the healthcare service provision. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. James. Can we appreciate his good work? Thank you. For the members, please note the questions. We can have them later. So next we shall have Mr. Dixon Moridi.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dixon Moridi. I'm going to do a presentation on paper that I've written. My co-authors were Mr. Alex and Mr. Michael. The topic of this paper was enhancing credit modeling accuracy in the finance sector. Systematic review of the oversampling of the selected minority oversampling technique, or other SWOT, in enhancing accuracy in credit modeling. Here we are looking at the finance sector, how we use models or other technology to tell whether a client, given a specific client, whether he is likely to default a loan or he is going to repay a loan well as expected. So, going on very fast, I'll go to introduction. Here we acknowledge that credit modeling is a very essential service, and sorry about that. We acknowledge the use of machine learning and statistical models that are used to transform raw data into information that can guide the financial institutions in making financial decisions that do not subject them to loss. There are a number of popular techniques that are used, and some of these are sampling methods, cost-sensitive methods, and sample methods. With the sampling, SWOT is categorized under the sampling methods. Cost-sensitive is where we use different methods, but you need the main expertise to assign the risk of exposing a client or your money to a given client. Ensemble methods is where you combine several other methods, which could include the sampling methods, cost-sensitive. You can use machine learning methods one at a time until you are able to tell this is the best method that I have. And we have to acknowledge that achieving high accuracy has remained to be a challenge in machine learning, and that is why we invoke SWOT to help us solve the solution. So we acknowledge that there exist inaccuracies in predicting credit modeling, and these inaccuracies arise from imbalanced data. They can also come from noisy in data and uncertainty, where you are not sure of the outcome that you expect. So SWOT as an advantage over the challenges that I've mentioned, and it effectively improves classification accuracy. It also allows us to reduce bias in data, where it also allows us improve performance in machine learning models. So SWOT has gained influence or other popularity over various domains. It can be used in various fields such as credit modeling, as I'm presenting today. It has also been used in fraud detection. It has also been used in medical analysis, where you have to tell a patient whether he is sick or not from a given disease. So here is the statement problem that I was researching about. We acknowledge the challenge of lack of 100% accuracy in predicting credit modeling, or rather the predictive accuracy of the credit models. So, and they arise from the challenges that I earlier mentioned, balance data, loss and balance in data. And there is also another challenge of fitting, where you find you have a model, but it is predicting data so well that you are not able to tell when an error arises. So some models overfit so well, but at the end of the day they subject a company or other financial institution to risk. So evidence here we acknowledge the challenge, and we recommend that if this challenge is not addressed, it can lead to financial losses. So the goal of this study was to evaluate the existing literature. We go through the certain studies, and we evaluate the effectiveness of SMART in addressing those challenges. Next, we look at the objective. The objective was to systematically review the efficacy of SMART in addressing data imbalances, ultimately enhancing accuracy in credit modeling. If efforts by redistributing data more favorably for predictive purposes. Next, we go to a conceptual and theoretical framework. So here we are addressing the class imbalance, and through this we are using SMART process and advanced developments in SMART to look at them. Then the end results we are able to check on how much we have enhanced predictive accuracy of these models. The methodology, to analyze the impact of SMART in credit modeling, we did a comprehensive literature review. We looked at sites like Google Scholar, IEEE Explorer, and SpringLink, and other publications that and something to do with credit modeling, use of SMART, and around that context. So we looked at around 15 studies that were reviewed, and key variables extracted included methodologies employed. We looked at performance metrics and principal findings from these empirical studies. Then here is an overview of the studies that I looked at. I looked at the last 20 years, or rather the last 2 decades, so that I could have, or rather I could read from the most recent literature that have been done. So like SMART was introduced in 2002 by somebody, Charlie Trump, and machine learning algorithm that was used was decision tree. Methodology was introduced to apply synthetic and real-world data sets. We evaluated using this data set the impact of SMART in addressing accuracy in credit modeling, and there was a key finding: significant improvements in ECO and the fund score. He contributed, he established foundation principle of SMART. Thereafter, several studies followed, and after Charlie Trump, as you can see projected here. Next is a continuation of these studies, and the key findings are well outlined. We go to the most recent one, which is by Rafa et al. In 2022, where he invoked various machine learning algorithms that were longitudinal. The methodology was a longitudinal study. He assessed the long-term effects of SMART, because we can now SMART in solving the modern problems that we have, but we cannot tell in the future, depending on the future trends that are going to, like dynamics from maybe politics, socio-economy, whatever, you cannot tell how effective these models will be in future. So he was interested in that. Then we go to key findings of all those studies that I've outlined earlier. So this is a summary of the scores. I said I want to look at the predictive accuracies of all these studies that were done. And you can see for every study, and then there was the model that were used, then there are the key performance metrics that were evaluated. And for each study, you can tell there was an improvement in predictive accuracy of the model, where you see the last column represents the overall score for these models. So as per different standards, depending with the algorithm that is used, give us different results. And in discussion, I'll tell you all this data means. Here is a continuation of the evaluation up to the last research that was done. And because of time, I cannot go standing after each study. So here's a discussion of key findings. We start with logistic regression. So basically, for you need to understand without SMART, we can predict credit accuracy, but without SMART so that we can better it. But in machine learning, we have machine learning algorithms that are combined with SMART so that it's able to better the predictive accuracy so that to improve. The first one is there are so many other machine learning algorithms, but I consider those that are used in the most recent literatures. And the first one was logistic regression, whose impact was it accelerated missed reactions, precision and recall increased by 20% and 15%, but the general accuracy dropped because mostly you realize these models are non-linear. So for linear models, it exhibits a better improvement as compared to non-linear movements. And we have deficient, the insight here that contributed to literature was that SMART improves class balance, but may reduce the overall accuracy due to logistic regression sensitivity to data. Weakness, there is high sensitivity to imbalanced data adjustments that limits accuracy gains. We go to logistic trees, to deficient trees. And deficient tree greatly improve the predictive accuracy. You can see a score from 54% to around 87%, where precision and recall increased also from around it increased by 25% and 20% respectively. So the insight here is that decision trees combined with SMART perform very well. They enhance predictive accuracy and reliability. You can tell from a score of 87 that is nearly close to 90. But it has a weakness. It's very prone to overfitting on synthetic data, especially in smaller data sets. It means now we introduce another problem that you have to deal with, which is the problem of overfitting. But you need not to worry. There are algorithms that address overfitting in models. Once you invoke that and other techniques, you are able to address the challenge of overfitting. Around the previous presenter also mentioned there is a challenge of overfitting in the prediction of whatever handling the protection of maybe viruses and etc. in networks. I think we can want the next paper to see how we can improve on handling overfitting. Then there is random forest as the guardian, whose impact was it marked also on improvement in enhancements. It improved from 59 to around 87. Another great score where precision also was able to improve from 30 and recall improved to 25. These are good improvements according to the standards that were done. SVM also, you can see the improvement here that actually with SVM also there was an increase. It's another non-linear machine learning algorithm, and the last one is artificial neural network. With ANN, there was a significant benefits. Accuracy increases from 54% to around 84%, where precision and recall improves as shown on the projection. The insight is not also is effective in improving predictive accuracy with ANN, making it a strong option for balanced candidate data. And weakness is also prone to overfitting. Just as saying, overfitting is a great challenge across all the models that we are looking at. So conclusion, we can tell from the fact that they evaluated at least 3 of the algorithms are able to improve on SMART in enhancing predictive accuracy. So we recommend the use of SMART. Limitations of current research is that there is lack of standardization. There are so many algorithms that have shown. There is no one or other research that has said let us recommend a specific algorithm, and these are the standardizations that we must check, or rather this model has to meet these requirements so that we can say this is the best that we can use in the market. And explore the areas, sports and other models. The field of predictive accuracy is so wide. We need to explore all the areas so that we can come up with the best predictive model. And then long-term performance, we have to look at if a student or a scholar is able to build a model today, in the next generation, another 10-12 years, we have to evaluate on how will it be valid, or what is the validity of this model to overcome time change. Then we look at recommendations. We recommend the use of decision trees, random forest, and DNN. As I've seen for those three algorithms, they have shown great improvement as compared to the other model. Be prepared for increased competition requirements. You realize for a model to give you high accuracies, you have to invest in the model, you have to involve a lot of computational resources so that you are able to get the best out of that model. Then we have, as I've said, for these two logistic model, logistic regression and SVO, you have to be very cautious when involving them in when you have to use them to predict the outcome of a person that you are about to credit. So if you use these ones, as I've exhibited earlier, they reduce the accuracy and you involve not this model. So future work, we recommend that we explore advanced techniques for class imbalance. That is why we move now to ensemble models. We combine several models so that we achieve better results. And then we have to investigate the effects of feature selection and dimensionality reduction. Here is where we look at the data. Before I introduce the data to a model, which other data preprocessing features are they involved, how accurate are they, and how are they likely to give me accurate results? Because we can have a model that works so well, but based on the data that you are entering into that model, it misleads you, it can give you wrong results. Then we conduct regular model evaluations. So we normally say technology is evolving, and every time we have a model, you cannot say there is a gospel truth, it will be here system in the model. You have to keep evaluating the model with the new technology and the new trends so that you can tell in the future it will also meet future demands or other needs. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dixon. Let's appreciate his work, his good work. So next, I am the presenter who is going to do a presentation for the next paper.
Eventually conclude that is not well positioned. So if in a room we have several of them located together, they are going to cause what we refer to as interferences, and their performance is going to reduce. Because interferences and their performance is going to reduce, because these are diseases. And these frequencies is under the free-to-use band, where you don't need the license to use. So because of that, these free-to-use bands, they are limited. So the sharing of these frequencies amongst these access points is what is going to cause collisions, and the network performance goes down. So we therefore conclude that APs would interfere with each other as a result of close positioning of them, and as a result of the shared frequency channels, which are limited. So that's being the problem, we want to explore now ways through which we can try to minimize this effect of shared frequencies, which are limited. So this figure shows the frequencies that are used in Wi-Fi
for the 802.11n. Basically, depending on the region, we have 13 frequency channels as numbered from 1 to 13, which is under 2.4 gigahertz. So there are few, for example, if you consider the number of non-interferent channels, there you will notice there are 3, the ones that are highlighted in red. Now, a technique that is recently being applied is to combine those frequencies together to better the performance, which is combining 2 to form the bigger frequency, which is the 40 megahertz highlighted in green, which further reduces these frequencies to 2 non-interfering ones. So this shows a closer location of these access points with the distantly allocated channels 1 and 13. They would not overlap. But if you assign the similar frequencies now that they are limited, they would cause interference. So here we are looking at 2 variables. One we are referring to as the channel distance, let's say from channel 1 to channel 13, a distance of around 12 channels. The other one we are referring to as the physical distance, that is how far a given access point like this is from the next access point. Now those 2 variables affect this performance. So we are proposing a joint optimization approach. I'm going to highlight what is in that joint optimization. So this demonstrates what we have classified as the physical distance between the physical locations of the access points and the channel distance between the frequencies allocated to the access points. Now, if you consider a case where 2 access points are assigned the same frequency to have a full overlap, the performance is expected to be around 30 Mbps, depending on what architecture of the access point is being used. If you consider a case where the frequencies are partly overlapping, such that some energy is spinning on the other, the performance can slightly improve to around 40 Mbps. And in the other case, where there is no overlap, they are using orthogonal channels, the performance is expected to be a maximum around 70, again depending on several techniques, the modulation and coding scheme, the architecture of the access point, the generation, either it is AX, AN, or AC. So that is what is expected, that is how they expect them to perform. So we are now looking at a scenario where we have the 3 of them. Assuming we have 3 in this room, this is bound to be the performance if we are using the 9 channel bonding, the 40 megahertz. In the next case, if you assume now you are using the 20 megahertz, which makes them slightly higher, the performance improves up to that. This is the total network throughput. It improves up to around 200 Mbps. So that would therefore mean that if you consider this scenario, using the 20 megahertz can improve the performance for that given scenario. For the second scenario, we are now looking at jointly using the 20 megahertz, the non-CB, and the 40 megahertz, the channel bonding. And this is the expected performance. For the non-CB, the performance goes to around 70-something Mbps. For the CB, the performance goes up to around 140. So we can have a technique that jointly selects for the given access point, do we use 20 megahertz or do we use the 40 megahertz? The other thing that we need to consider to do the optimization is what is the transmission power of these access points. Remember, we can regulate how much transmission power is being used by the antennas in these access points. For example, in this scenario, assuming that you are using the maximum transmission power, the coverage, the signal from this access point can cover some longer distance. So like this, assume the 2 access points, maximum transmission power, some power is going to spill from one access point to the other to cause the interference. Now, in the second scenario, the highlighted green, now you reduce the transmission power of this up to around 70% or 50%. Now, in that case, the signal transmission distance is going to reduce, and therefore the interference between this access point is also going to be eliminated. Therefore, this graph shows the throughputs for the two scenarios, for maximum transmission power highlighted in blue, and for the minimum, which is highlighted in green. So again, that is something that we can consider to regulate or to tune, so that we can try to optimize the performance. So that is how they relate, because when we are determining the transmission power, we are going to be looking at the received signal strength. What is the received signal strength from this access point to that given location where we have the next access point? So the other thing that we can, the other optimization criteria that we can consider, apart from the channel, the transmission power, is the proper location of the access points with appropriate setup optimization approaches. Now, depending on how you place the access points, the signal emitted by the antenna is going to be affected by the things that surrounds it. So for example, this, when it is placed here, the radiation is going to be affected by this obstacle, the wall. So it cannot radiate to the required distance, but if it was placed at a central place like this, then there are no, the obstacles interfering with the signal are going to be less, so it can radiate better. So this shows how the antennas are radiating. It is usually not in a circular manner, so which means how you position the access point. Be it straight like this, do you tilt it a bit, do you again tilt it again like that? That is playing with the z-axis, the XYZ axis. To better position that access point also determines the performance. That is a research that has been done by these authors. They have done a comprehensive research on how to better position the access points and how to better locate given an area like this. So the other factor that can be used as an optimization criteria is the selection of which antenna of the access point is going to make the transmission, the signal transmission. So we usually have the built-in antennas, like in this figure, the first figure, we have built-in antennas, what we expect to be in this access point. Now, comparing, looking at the older generation access points, those antennas are not very effective in radiating the signal. So therefore, we propose that you can have the external adapters being fitted to the access point, which can provide an antenna that better transmits the signal. So that is why we are saying that the transmission adapters contain the antennas for the signal transmission and the reception. The antennas built into the access points, that is the other models, may not perform well compared with the standalone adapters. Like the second, the middle figure that we have is a TP-Link adapter. Then the last one is an HRT4U, which is a better performance adapter, which was recently manufactured. So compare the access points and the standalone adapters, they are less expensive. So instead of buying a new access point all the same, which is recently made, we can just go for the antenna, which is less costly, then we fit it to this old generation access point to improve the quality of the signal, while at the same time cutting costs of the purchase of that hardware device. So we therefore propose to integrate the newer models for the adapters to improve the performance of Wi-Fi for the access points. So in conclusion, this is a proposal that is based on scattered studies that I've done. But these studies have not been integrated together to jointly use all the factors to optimize the performance of Wi-Fi. So we propose to adopt the following: proper allocation of the frequency channels, joint channel bonding and non-channel bonding, that is the selection of the 20 megahertz and the 40 megahertz, and the transmission power optimization, deciding whether to use the maximum or the minimum transmission power. Then the proper location of the access points with appropriate setup optimization approaches. Do we place it like here, or do we place it at the center, or do we place it at the door, for example? And finally, the use of transmission adapters to be fitted within the access points. So we are doing a study where all these factors are going to be built into a model. And that model is going to be deployed. You see, this access point runs an algorithm to better select the channel. So we are proposing that the algorithm that is running in the access points can be modified such that it can include all these factors, and eventually we expect that the access point is going to provide a better performance. So in future studies, a joint optimization model which can run as an algorithm in access points will be developed, and then it will be tested. Thank you so much for your time, for listening. So next, I will move to the next presenter, which is who happens to be Mr. Mishek. So Mishek. Welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. So, good evening. My name is Mishek Muremi from Computer Science Department based here at Tharaka University. So I'm here to present a paper on network security, specifically securing medical systems. Someone has just discussed about the medical systems here. It's more related to that. But now my presentation is based on securing and enhancing efficiency in those systems. Now, as I don't know whether you were able to go to my slide. So as they prepare this, what we call the wireless broad area networks, which has emerged as a result of the remarkable progress in the Internet of Things. And this one involves a system that is going to monitor the patient, or the health of the patient remotely. So in this case, we are trying to minimize that aspect of patients visiting hospitals, but having them being diagnosed remotely from their places. And therefore, that system, or rather that network, is called the wireless broad area network, which comprises of several components. I wish maybe the slides could be open so that you're able to see them. Okay, sorry for that. I think now we are set. So that's my topic, and those are my names. I believe. Okay. So, like I said, that is the system. It has three major components that are visible, but one of the structure has got some other components, like we have the patient device, which is the patient part, network manager, and the application provider. Now, those components are the major ones that participate in this network. Whereby we have the patient himself having some biosensors which are supposed to collect physiological data of a patient, then submit that data to another device that is very close to the human body, which has more processing capabilities. The patient device that is can be a mobile phone that is either worn around the human body. So it's called the aggregator, which is supposed to collect the signals from the biosensors that are there and then transmit them to the application provider, which can be an healthcare care system whereby a doctor can be able to access that system, get the details of the patient. It can be an emergency service if maybe the condition requires some maybe form of ambulance. That one can also access the data. Then after we have the network manager, which is very important in this network. It is very a trusted entity which is supposed to be collecting, rather doing some computations on behalf of the SOA devices, like generation of keys, which we are going to discuss their use. Then we have the other thing is that after it can also do some registration of entities that want to participate in the network, and they do some revocation, because sometimes some entities may be registered and later on misbehave, or rather going against the required set standards, then it can be revoked. Now, in that case, we say biosensors are very tiny devices which are usually implanted in the body or can be worn around the bone, and therefore they need some assistance in some computations. Now, our focus in this study was the security and efficiency of the network, and therefore we have data that is on transit being subjected to security threats, some of which we have heard them from previous presenters, like man-in-the-middle attacks. There's also integrity aspect. Confidentiality is also a key requirement, as well as the denial of service and other types of attacks. Then we are saying these devices are being resource constrained. That means they need very efficient algorithms when they are doing computations. Now, the focus here is to find ways of securing, method of securing data when it is being transmitted. That is on security. Now, for this one, we have seen the kind of benefits that they provide, like real-time and remote health monitoring. That one I've mentioned. There is also improved patient outcome because there is timely diagnosis with these systems. You don't have, because they auto-detect any kind of condition in the human body. Then there is also reduced cost due to rare hospital visits and the readmissions, because that one is being done remotely. So a lot has been done to come up with methods of coming up with the proper or other secure systems to transmit this data, which are now the methods have utilized what we call the public key cryptography to ensure authentication and confidentiality of data. So public key cryptography has been grouped into either public key infrastructure, identity-based, and certificate-less. So all those techniques have got their challenges, and of course strength and limitations. But when you look at the three, the major challenges are certificate management. There's another challenge called the kiosk group, whereby a network manager can be compromised, and then valid signatures are generated by an attacker. Then low performance efficiency is also a challenge. So in this case, the main objective of this study was to analyze the existing schemes that have been proposed by various others, and then from there, after getting their weaknesses and strength in terms of performance, then we design a more secure design, rather scheme or protocol. That is the encryption, which will combine the signature generation and encryption from different two steps into one step, which now minimizes computation costs. And then after that, we also do the validation as the third objective. That was the third objective, validation of the new scheme in terms of security and efficiency, using both formal and informal methods for that. Now, those are the attacks that are prone to these systems. Security attacks are there, impersonation, I mentioned them. Those, again, performance requirement, which requires a lot of efficiency in terms of computation and communication cost. Now, that is how the literature has grouped the various schemes that have been there. I think they are self-explanatory. Then I mentioned that the system model comprises of those components: by sensors, partition device, application provider, and the network manager. Now that is the framework of how that design or the scheme, the new scheme will adopt, and it goes up to that. But now, very important, this study was based on the following mathematical concepts. There's the first one is called elliptic curve, another one is an operation called point addition, another one called scalar multiplication. Those are the operations which are much related to the curve that is represented by that equation. Now, there are then two other problems which are very difficult to solve, and those are the ones that build the foundation of the technique that we choose. That technique is the elliptic curve cryptography, which is very has got desirable features, which includes security. It achieves security with a very short key length, and therefore these are the two difficult or hard problems which cannot be solved by normal computer. And therefore they formed the ground of our study. Now that is the setup. I think that this one I will not be take time to go explain, because it's more mathematical, but that's the first step on setup. It requires those inputs and generates those outputs, which are very important in the algorithm. Then we have the next step is registration and key generation, which is done by the network manager. We have the key generation for the patient device and application provider. Then we also have this encryption, which is now the actual the main process or algorithm for this, which now signs the message and encrypts it with a single step. Now we are going to check efficiency when we consider the cost involved in this encryption. How much does it cost the system in terms of computation? And then there is also an encryption. The receiving device must also do an encryption so that it can be able to, it's just like decryption that is well known for the cryptography primitive. And therefore there is an encryption which is done by the AP. And the result of an encryption is the original message, just the way normal cryptography takes place. Now that equation proves the correctness of the signature that we designed. At least the value VAP, after proving that, we should be able to get the value RPDI, which are part of the encryption and encryption results. Now, then we go to the validation. The scheme was validated using both informal and informal security analysis method. Where now this one, the formal analysis is what we say is mathematically proven, and we chose one of the methods that is well recommended, that is the random oracle model for mathematical proofs. That is what the standard used. And this model involves two adversaries or two types of attackers, that is type 1 and type 2, whereby type 1 is an outside attacker who is also a regular user, whose capabilities are to replace the loan's public key with a choice value without accessing the network manager's master key. So there is a condition for this. This kind of an adversary is not supposed to access the network manager's private key. Remember now, the key is being generated using a random number that is very difficult to compute based on the problem I said is called the electric curve defilement logarithm problem. Sorry for that. Then we have the second adversary. Now this inside attacker can access the network manager's public key, but cannot replace the public key of a device with a choice value. Those two sets of adversaries represent the possible kind of attackers that we can experience in this kind of network. And then security proof is done using game 1 and game 2, whereby game 1 rules involve the adversary asking queries to a challenger who provides correct answers, and then this adversary will use these answers to compromise the system. Now it's just a test whether the adversary is able to use the answers, because it will definitely obtain what it requires. Then we see whether it can compromise. The same case with game 2, which involves adversary type 2. Then the target of both adversaries is to breach the security of the proposed scheme using the responses given by the challenger. And therefore, we have the definitions which will argue or study that if adversary 1 has an advantage to win game 1, that is if the advantage is negligible, that means it doesn't have much significance, then we say the proposed scheme is secure. Therefore, that means we assume that adversary is able to solve those two problems which we are saying cannot be solved by a normal computer. So therefore, if we assume solving that problem is hard, then no adversary is able to break that problem. The same case with game 2, we have the definition for number 2, which again argues for adversary number 2. Now that is how the interaction takes place. Random oracle is there, the challenger and the adversary would query some, what we call the hash queries and other parameters which are given there, and then it tries to solve the problem. So this is challengers interact with the adversary 1 to return solution to the CDHP problem, which contradicts our notion that it is computationally difficult, and therefore we say the proposed scheme is resistant to type 1 adversary, and the same process is used for the second adversary, that is LM2. Now, because we only two problems, in this case, we are focusing on confidentiality and unforgeability. So the second approach will test unforgeability, and the same case, the same process will be argued the same way. And therefore, at the end of the day, you realize that because these problems are very hard to compute, no such an adversary is going to break that. Then the other kind of analysis is informal. Here we have some proofs from the generations that we had, that all these security attacks have been able, the scheme that has been proposed is able to resist all these kind of attacks from the proofs that have been given there informally. So they go down up to the man in the middle attack. Because we have proven unforgeability in the formal proof, then it is the man in the middle attack again is counted in this case. Now, on the other side, we also have performance in terms of computation, the last metric. Now, this one, we simulate some running times for cryptographic operations, and they have been provided there, which are used to compute the costs that are involved in either signing or encrypting or unencrypting the messages that are sent in this network. Now we have some references which the standard conducted and computing the cost that we incur during message encryption and unencryption. So we have all the way from 2019 signatures that or other schemes that have been proposed up to 2024 this year, and whereas that the proposed scheme down there incurs the least computation cost at 1.678 milliseconds for both encryption and unencryption, with the DHL at 2020 incurring 50 milliseconds. So it is very much different. On efficiency, we realize our scheme, or rather the proposed scheme, improves the efficiency for all the schemes that have been proposed by the percentages that are shown there. That is a graphical representation. The green, the one in green far end there is the proposed scheme, which incurs significantly low cost, and therefore we have the overall being given there, both encryption and unencryption. Same case with the communication cost, which considers the cost of transmitting ciphertext, sender's public key, receiver's public key, and the timestamp. And therefore, again, we have our proposed scheme having a significantly also lower communication cost, though there are a few others whose communication cost is slightly lower than ours. But this one, we argue that this is forgivable because the same schemes are incurring very high costs when it comes to computation. That is what the standard did, and of course doing some testing to validate the proposed scheme. And that means that it is, we can just recommend that whoever would wish to implement can adopt our scheme because it is incurring less cost when it comes to communication. Now, for future work, we know with advances in technology, there are upcoming computers which are believed to be very powerful, which are using quantum technology, rather than quantum computers, which are very powerful to the extent that they can solve these problems that we are saying they cannot be solved by normal computers. And therefore, future work intends to combine the aspect of quantum key distribution, which is a feature in quantum computers, with the desirable features of electric curve cryptography to come up with an hybrid cryptographic framework, which now will be able to resist the power of quantum computers, and therefore enhancing security in the wireless body area network, which is a critical area and an area that is emerging as a result of IoT progress that is being witnessed currently. That is what we did, and that is what I wish to present, and I thank you for your audience. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Mishik, for your good presentation. So at this juncture, I welcome questions from the audience. The audience, anyone with a question? We have not appreciated his presentation. Let's clap for him. Thank you for that. Any questions from the audience? I can see some of the presenters have walked out. Director? Any questions from the... maybe I can ask James, you were presenting about the implantable devices and the security concerns about them. There is a project that is being done by SpaceX. They are trying to see how they can regulate human brains using those implantable devices. I don't know whether you are aware of it or not, but what is your take on it? Somebody implants a chip on you, when you are moving around, they can decide that you stop walking. So they want to press button and you stop walking, you just remain there.
Well, the healthcare is a very sensitive sector when we compare with the conventional computing areas. The SpaceX program is bound by regulatory frameworks. For example, in the US, where the SpaceX headquarters are, we have the FISMA for federal regulation, and also we have the HIPAA Acts that regulate that. So while these technologies are good, there are some ethical considerations we need to address and data control, because now who owns this data? Is it the healthcare service provider, in this case SpaceX, or the patient? So that is an ongoing debate, and if